going on, YouTube? It's Key Baby, coming to you with another video. This one's going out especially to the youngins, the ones who are in their early 20s, guys maybe in their mid 20s. I'm speaking as a guy who's about to turn 28 next week, so I'm about to enter my late 20s era, and I have some things to say to guys that are a little bit younger than me, maybe guys that are the same age as me. I don't know, anyone that might be willing to seek some wisdom from this is more than welcome to listen. But I also want to speak to the men who may be a little bit more sensitive, men that maybe feel things a little bit more deeply than your average guy, and maybe is made to feel a little bit displaced, feel a little alienated, because that's in a lot of ways how I feel sometimes. And it didn't really take for me until I started going to therapy, and still I started looking into a lot of self-care and a lot of self-help, self-development, started reading books like a lot of guys do in their early to mid-20s. I was just trying to better myself and get myself on a better life path, kind of make sense of myself and where I wanted to go in life, and as a lot of men do. And then when I was in my early 20s, kind of like a lot of guys are also doing nowadays, they started looking to figures online to look up to, maybe to model themselves after. This was kind of the 2017, 2018, 2019 era. So a lot of these guys that are now big, you talk about your Joe Rogans, your Andrew Tates, the Nelk boys. A lot of those guys were just now, we're just starting to get on the scene, especially guys like Jordan Peterson as well. In fact, I actually read 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and it still is a good book. But, as I've gotten older, I've come to realize that a lot of these manosphere guys, they give you maybe a grain of wisdom in a crock of BS. So, because, listen, I think we're entering a time now where guys who are maybe a little bit more sensitive, guys that are a little bit wired differently, they don't have to fit the mold of a traditionally, masculine guy anymore. They don't have to, force themselves to be hardened. They don't have to force themselves to turn their emotions off when they're just not wired that way. I feel like as a guy who was coming up in his earlier 20s and mid 20s, that was something that I felt like I had to do a lot. Like I had to water myself down, water down my personality, kind of hide who I was a little bit. And I feel like the pendulum is starting to swing. I feel like the time we find ourselves in 2025, things are changing dramatically. As far as relationships, people, it's just, it's different times, man. And I think now is a good opportunity to start this dialogue, in my opinion, with the highly sensitive men out there, particularly because as a highly sensitive man, I was made to feel different my entire life. I was made to feel like something was wrong with me. And that wasn't until I started my therapy journey, and until I started really looking into what HSPs are, highly sensitive people, that made me realize that I'm not different. I'm just wired differently. Neurodivergent even. When I was younger, I used to always think that about myself. Am I autistic? What's wrong with me is something that I always thought about. And the reality is there was nothing wrong with me. It was just the way I was born. And I think I was also influenced by the trauma I had when I was younger. I'm a guy who grew up without a father. I did have father figures in my life, but as far as my main biological father, he was not around. I was raised by a single mom. So that influenced who I kind of grew up into. I often sought out father figures. Thankfully, I did have some in the form of my uncles, maybe older cousins, even some of my friends' dads sometimes would step up and play that role. But then I also would find roles, father figures in online figures as well, kind of had that parasocial dynamic going on. That came in the form of, artists I would listen to. I was a big Kanye fan, so I often found myself listening to Kanye because I kind of felt drawn to him. He felt like a guy that I could relate to. He felt like a guy that was a little bit different, and maybe didn't fit the mold of traditional masculinity. So, the point is, I was made to feel different, and I felt like I had to find a way to fit in, to survive and to thrive in the social dynamic of just getting along with women and with other people. And I think it was only until recently, the last couple years or so, and even now, I'm starting to find power in who I am and learning to embrace who I am as a man who feels things differently, who's highly moved by people and by art. And I'm just wired differently to internalize things in a different way, compared to people who don't really have that much emotional depth. And I'm not saying that in like a, what's the word? In a condescending way. It's just the way it is. People just aren't on the same wavelength as me, and that's okay. I grew up wanting to be on the same wavelength as everybody else, and now I've come to realize as I've gotten older that people just aren't on the same wavelength of me, and that's okay. But the point of this video is I want the young guys out there that maybe are like me, and they think that they have to compartmentalize themselves. They think they have to push themselves down to fit into a mold, to be more like those traditionally masculine figures, to be more like the Andrew Tates of the world, to be more like the Joe Rogans of the world. So have you, Shane Gillis, I don't know, Jordan Peterson. I feel like you can take the good from that, and you don't necessarily have to force yourself to be something other than what you are. I think you shouldn't have to dilute your power and your sensitivity, because there is power in sensitivity. There is power in being who you are. And I think, you go online in a lot of these spaces on X, Instagram, and I think a lot of the dialogues that are being had among men and women in our own, gender roles, is that men have to behave like men and women have to behave like women. And I see a lot of attitudes that are perpetuated not by men but by women as well, that men have to man up, they can't show emotion, they have to be a provider. And I'm here to challenge that thought and to say, how does showing emotion make you not strong? How does, as long as you are fulfilling the basic roles of masculinity, in my view, which are to, be a provider, protect people you care about, be a leader. Can you not do those things while also expressing emotion, while also being an emotional person, while also feeling and processing things on a deeper level than maybe is traditionally deemed acceptable for a man? Why do those things make you not masculine? Why does it make you not masculine to appreciate art and appreciate beauty and just the little things of life that make you emotionally overwhelmed? I shouldn't even say that because there's a negative connotation with that, but just feeling things at your core, man. Why is that deemed not masculine? So I leave you with that thought, and really just a message to those younger guys to be careful when they're consuming content from these these manosphere guys, because I think that you don't have to dilute yourself. You don't have to hide yourself and shrink yourself to fit into a mold that may be becoming outdated. I would just give it some thought and really ask yourself if that's what you think that women are actually looking for. Are they looking for, a tough guy that doesn't want to feel anything and just wants to treat women like, their property? Or do they want a guy who, feels things and is in touch with things? Because I can tell you now, I do have a girlfriend now, and she's very appreciative of the fact that I'm in touch with my emotions. So I'm here to tell you, if you're someone who was like me, if you're someone that felt like they were different and they had to shrink themselves in order to fit in, you don't have to do that. And I know you'll be saying, oh, well, I've met girls that, maybe we've hit things off, maybe we've been good, and, they've come to know me a little bit more, and they now know that I'm emotional, and maybe they're put off by that and they don't want to talk to me anymore. Don't worry about them. Your person will come. Your tribe and your people will find you for being who you are. You don't need to shrink or ascribe to any personality type, any, thought process that doesn't align 100% with who you are. And I mean that. I really mean that. So I'm happy to start the conversation. I'm happy to start the dialogue about, who men should be in 2025, how they should present themselves, especially highly sensitive men. So let's get that conversation going if you guys want to have it. Anyway, that's all I've got for right now. I'm going to be trying to make YouTube videos more often, as well as get back into the studio, make some more music. So hopefully you enjoy the content, whether it is the music or the YouTube videos. And I'll see you guys again next time. Thanks.